We've had 15 years, or should I say probably 14 years of borrowing costs, which are right at the floor, elevated hugely. Asia, of course, in the midst of this West or developed market kind of hiking cycle. How has Asia done for you?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Asia has done fantastically well. If you look at, we have been in the region for 150 years. We celebrated 100 years in China 2 years ago. We are preparing to celebrate 100 years in Hong Kong next year. And if you look at the last couple of decades, the growth that the region has provided, the rest of the world and us as a firm has been anything but astonishing. If you look at the GDP 2 decades ago, it was a fourth of what it is today. So the region has benefited from globalization and probably from the Western world having had low rates for 15 years. But in the meantime, it has also produced incredible innovation, efficiency, and so on and so forth that has been what has led to this growth. And the GDP per capita that we have seen, and we got mentioned this morning at the conference, has grown from $4,000 to 18,000, which is kind of remarkable. So it's an exciting time to be here. We look at Asia for the increased sophistication of the institutional investor base. Think about the largest pension fund in the world is actually in Asia, is in Japan. Or think about the superannuation business in Australia. Think about the growing ambition of Asian corporates who span the region and also the rest of the world, or think about the payments innovation, which are really, to a certain extent, revolutionizing the payment rails.
Filippo, I mean, at the core of this has been the motor of Asia, and that's China.
Yes.
And China, of course, of late, has seemingly come off the rails a bit. Give us a sense of how your business is doing in China now and the opportunities or lack of there.
So our business in China continues to do well. We received at the beginning of this year the final authorization to acquire the 100% of the asset management company, which was the last entity which we wanted to acquire full control. So we have the security company, a local incorporated bank, the future and option company, and the asset management company. The business in China has been exceptionally resilient, and we are there in China to serve our clients who are there, our customer, our support our employees and the communities overall. And the business has been remarkably resilient, notwithstanding some of the headwinds.
Absolutely. And you actually said in May when we interviewed you that a China slowdown was not a concern of yours.
No, it's not, because we're investing for the next 25 years. So whether one year or another things slow down a little bit, it doesn't really make a difference if you think you're investing for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, you then in that interview also did say that you expected a flurry of activity in the second half. Have you had that flurry of activity?
Some green shoots have happened.
That's not a flurry, is it?
It definitely wasn't a flurry. It hasn't been a flurry. I hope that 2024 will be a flurry of activity. Definitely, we need the financial markets to stabilize a little bit to be conducive to deal making. Some deals have happened. If I can think about some M&A deals in Australia.
Are some in the pipeline which have been just frozen, essentially?
Yes. So the pipeline is very healthy, but we need the markets to stabilize for this to happen.
And are you seeing any signs of that?
Yes. To a certain extent, we see, for instance, IPO pipeline coming back, both in Hong Kong and elsewhere around the world. So that could be conducive if we believe that dollar rates have now reached their peak, and the question is from how high to how long, then I think that will be conducive to growth in deal making next year.
So exactly, so what's your dollar view? And how does that then play out, as you just said, in your business?
So in dollar rates, the question, as I just said, is we think they have reached, the Fed has reached the cycle, and it's how long will they keep the rates where they are. Now, there is an element that markets are pricing perfection. They're really saying, okay, the cuts will start in the second half of next year and so on and so forth.
If not before.
If not before. Now, rarely in financial markets perfection happens. So the question is, could rates be higher or at this level for longer than the markets are currently expecting? That could be a little bit of a headwind to some of the deal making next year, but the pipeline is building. And 2025, it's an important year in terms of redemption, financing redemption, and so on and so forth, so deals have to happen before.
Okay, so what are we talking about in terms of industry groups and asset classes that you're looking at these deals? Are you seeing any concentration anywhere?
There is definitely interest and will continue to be there in the healthcare space, TMT, consumer tech in particular, general consumer. There are items that are being looked at. Energy transition, anything that has to do with energy transition, electric vehicles, solar panels, batteries, and so on. So there is quite a lot of things going on.
Okay, you mentioned green shoots in China, but we're seeing green shoots elsewhere.
It's actually across the region. And there is an enormous excitement about India, about Japan. Associating Japan and inflation in the same sentence has been remarkable.
It was an oxymoron before, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Right.
And now it's been for 30 years in the making, but people are really excited about the opportunities up north, as well as what India is currently producing. The fact that India by 2026 could be a $5 trillion economy, and in that sense, you could have the second, the third, and the fourth largest economies in the world housed in this region. So by the end of this decade, you could have 50% of the world GDP produced in Asia Pacific, which is remarkable.
With that, of course, comes how you deploy people.
Yes.
So are you looking at deploying more people in Japan, India, at the expense of, let's say, Hong Kong or mainland China? What are you doing?
So the headcount over the last few years in the region has grown steadily, and it keeps on growing because the business is growing, so we keep investing and growing with the business. It's not redeploying from one area to the other. It's just steadily we have been adding, and my expectation that the headcount will keep on growing steadily.
Where?
A little bit everywhere.
Even Hong Kong?
Well, Hong Kong has grown, Singapore has grown, Japan has grown, Australia is growing, India is growing. In India, we have almost 60,000 employees, if we include also the corporate center. So the region has almost a third of our global workforce right now.
A third of the global workforce. What about a third of, well, what percentage of your business is done in this part of the world as a whole?
It's around, it's not a secret, it's around 9%.
And where does it go to?
Well, hopefully it becomes as big as Europe, which is around 12%. So that's my target. As a European, I want to take over Europe if I can.
Filippo, just my final question here. What are you excited about in 2024?
Some of the deals and the opportunities that this year didn't materialize, hopefully they will come to the market next year. If the geopolitical headwinds, they kind of abate a little bit.